this morning from ABC and the Washington Post showing 41% of Americans now say that the U.S. is doing too much to support Ukraine. That number is up 9% from February and up nearly 30% from April of last year. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance leading a group of Republicans who sent a letter to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. And they are asking about the total amount of Ukrainian aid. Sullivan recently told reporters that the administration has sent $79.9 billion so far. But Vance says the Office of Management and Budget provided him with data showing that the U.S. has sent $111 billion in aid to Ukraine. Vance now is demanding answers on the $31 billion discrepancy. The number that lots of congressmen and women come up with on this program is $113 billion. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Maria.
So what do you make of these new concerns from this group of lawmakers? What number do you think it is in terms of the support the U.S. has sent to Ukraine? And how do you deal with this, knowing that the U.S. has been among the largest sending aid? Do you try to get other countries in Europe to pony up or stay where we are in response to this upset from lawmakers?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misinformation about it. I mean, to me, what you just showed me is 60% of the Americans are supporting aid to Ukraine. That's pretty consistent with the Reagan Institute poll last year, around 60%. This year it's 58%. Gallup poll this year is around 62%. So the majority of American people are supportive. We've got a very vocal minority in the House of Representatives that are opposed to it, and they get, obviously, a lot of attention. When it comes to weapons, you know, we're providing about $45 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine. And as opposed to sending American troops, we're sending weapons. And what do we get for that? Well, Ukraine's got 83% of its territories, destroyed half of Russia's combat forces, and Russia right now is in no condition to be able to advance on Eastern European countries or NATO countries, which has been our concern from the outset. If we don't stop the Russians here, they're going to keep coming, and then we got American troops involved. To me, it's an incredible return on the investment to prevent the loss of American blood. Yes, but we're spending hard-earned taxpayers' dollars to do this. The overall amount is a bit north of $100 billion. That's the military support plus economic and humanitarian aid. The military support is about $44 billion. Now, listen, Maria, the total European aid support, military aid support, is north of $43 billion. I mean, the Europeans are giving, and it's misunderstood that they're not. And my problem with the Biden administration is they don't have a strategic goal. I mean, Zelensky's goal makes sense to me and to many others who support this effort. Drive the Russians out of Ukraine territory, liberate its people. That is the objective. Biden says, we'll stay for as long as it takes. Well, that's not the way to end the war. The Ukrainians want to end it as soon as possible. Give me as much equipment as I'm asking for. Give it to me now and let me end this. The Europeans have finally come and recognized that Zelensky is right about this. And they have put pressure on Biden. It's the Europeans who forced the tanks into Ukraine. It's the Europeans who put the long-range cruise missiles. We haven't done that. We've finally given them ATACMS. The Europeans forced the F-16s on the Biden administration. We're all finally getting behind all of that. Dragging our feet has prolonged the war. But people don't understand the facts out here, and they're flying all over the place.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm glad you raised it. But even here, there's this question of, is this open-ended? What is the end goal? You know, are we just going to keep sending money? And now it's part of this funding fight, right? I mean, the Republicans are trying to get 4 bills done this week. One of them is defense. Some of the Republicans are saying, I'm not going to vote yes on any of this if there's money to Ukraine, even though the money specifically we're talking about here is $300 million is going to be used to train our troops training their troops in Ukraine. But the Republicans, some Republicans, are so fed up with the fact that all this money has gone to Ukraine, and look at the squalor that our military is living in some of the military barracks that we just showed. You know, look at the homelessness, the migrants. I mean, we're running out of money, literally, in America, and yet there's still all this money with no ultimate, end game. What's the end game?
Well, first of all, I don't think we're running out of money. Watching the way Biden spends money and they print it is incredible. We're talking about $6.7 trillion in a federal budget, Maria.
Yeah. And
this is the amount of money we're spending here on Ukraine is less than a percentage out of that $6.7 trillion. And you know full well that we're throwing lots of money away in that budget. And can we do the southern border, do Ukraine, take care of our people? You bet we can. These are policy issues for this administration. They have an open border because that's their policy.
That's right.
And we have an epic crime problem in the United States of America because we have mayors and police commissioners who are not addressing this, and district attorneys who are not backing them up in addressing the crime rate we have in this country. These are policy decisions that are being made that are driving these issues. You can't blame the money going to Ukraine as somehow it's taken away from securing the border. You know full well this administration doesn't want to secure the border.
That's right. And that's what this fight is all about, policy. It's about policy. Where are the priorities in terms of American money, taxpayer money, within this potential shutdown? I want to get your take on China, of course, as we always zero in on that. Our number one adversary, former President Trump, discussing his strategy to take on China's economy. Well, he spoke in South Carolina yesterday. Here's a bit of that. Watch this, General.
I will impose across-the-board tariffs on most foreign-made goods. If China or any other country makes us pay a 200 or 300 or 100% tariff, we will make them pay a reciprocal tariff of the exact same amount. I will revoke China's first and most favored nation's trade status. They have a most favored nation because they're a developing country. The way I look at our country, we're a developing country, too, because our country's gone to hell.
General, what about that? What is the best way to take on China right now, given all of the aggression and provocation coming out of the Communist Party?
Yeah, well, Maria, I don't assess political candidates' policies. I try to stay independent of the political process. But in dealing with China, I think we have to be very aggressive with them. Listen, we're not going to decouple our economies because they're so large and they're interdependent, and everybody recognizes that. But I think what we've realized is that there are so many things that are going into the Chinese economy from American companies that are helping them develop their military and repress their people. And this kind of awareness now, the American people have awoken to it, the Congress has awoken to it, and we've got to really fix on that. And also, American companies inside of China, I mean, they're getting more and more at risk because of China's policies and clamping down on the private sector, certainly.
Right, for sure.
And supporting their own state-owned enterprises. So, yes, I think in general, dealing with China, it's about pushing back economically, technologically, politically, and also militarily. A whole of government with our allies and partners is the right strategy here. It's comprehensive because the threat is very comprehensive.
Yeah. You know, I've been asking everybody, would you pull the economic lever against China with the capital markets? And nobody will give me an answer. I mean, I asked President Trump that a couple months ago. He didn't really answer it straight on. We haven't really seen policies that would do that from this administration either. But there are companies, Chinese companies, that trade on our major exchanges, and some of them are actually sanctioned. They're in ETFs, they're in index funds. That basically has American investors funding the expansion of the CCP. Many of these companies are tied to the Chinese military, and yet we're buying those stocks.
No, I totally agree with you on this, Maria. That's why we got to put a microscope on what is taking place here.
Yeah, exactly.
We should not be helping. And when you look at Chinese companies, the civil fusion that takes place between private companies in China, state-owned enterprises, and the military, you got to look at that as all being one. And once you recognize that, then you have to go in there with a scalpel and go after that kind of civil military fusion that's taken place. We're
That's
getting
right.
smarter at it, but we got a long way to go.
Great point on civil-military fusion there. It's all one, connected in China. General, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.